Hello, good evening, and welcome. I am Michael Elmers. My company is Deeper States Mind and Wellness. I am a clinical neurolinguistic programmer. Welcome tonight to tonight's show. Tonight, I'm going to be talking a little bit about changing thought processes. It's interesting for me when we don't reframe negative thoughts, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what happens with when we reframe negative thoughts, but also what happens if we don't reframe negative thoughts. And I'm going to open this up for discussion at the end so that people can ask questions because there are times when we don't understand why our brain is doing what it is doing, and then we just kind of have no idea why that's happening. Um, the human mind and the human body are very automatic. People go through processes over and over and over again and don't ever understand why. Um, so how many of you have ever been? I mean, I've been there, and I'm sure some of you have, hopefully, where you're just at the grocery store and all of a sudden you just start feeling really anxious, or you start feeling like, somebody's just annoying you. And usually, I can digress and tell you a little bit about what it was like for me. So when I went through depression and anxiety after my mom's passing, I found that I would go through cycles of these waves where everything would either annoy me or I was just passive with everything. Um, I could remember going to the grocery store and waiting in line to check out. And as I was waiting to check out, I can remember just clearly that I had places to go and things to do. And this woman was just kind of checking through the machine as slow as she could. And I was losing my patience. And I thought, oh, what a what. And I thought, you know what? She has no time, minimum wage job. And she's sitting here checking me through as slowly as possible. That used to become the way that I would react, and I would notice that that would turn into something else. So that feeling would become something else for me. It would harbor into my neurology or into who I was, and I would notice that that would start to become worse. I'm sure a lot of you and we all do this sometimes. The problem is when you don't come out of that mind state, that feeling, that emotion. And we'll talk about that long term and what happens to that. So a lot of times, have you ever been you wake up in the morning and you think, oh, you know what, I got all this stuff to do tomorrow. I have a really, really busy day. And you just wake up feeling kind of shitty, right? You wake up just feeling like, oh, I just don't know what's going on. I feel like crap. It's a shitty day. And it just kind of, it keeps going. It keeps building and building and building, right? Um, I used to have those days as well when I went through depression and anxiety. And all of this started all the way back. I mean, this all started becoming a problem right after my mother's passing. I think probably it started about maybe 30 days afterwards. A lot of times we don't even know what's happening to us. We don't know that we're going through anxiety and depression. We don't know that we're even starting to head down that road, right? But a lot of reframing that negative thought is really, really crucial. Um, so what happens is to somebody who's starting to go through depression and anxiety, they'll start with anxiety first. Starts with small little panic attacks. A lot of times it'll be where you're just kind of working on something and you get really, really frustrated and you feel your internal body start to feel like it's overwhelmed and like you just can't get through this one thing, right? Um, I used to feel that as a kid. So I think that maybe depression and anxiety was in my background. It just wasn't activated until after my mother's passing. But normally what happens is we all have anxiety and we all have depression, right? We all go through these waves. But what normally happens is you go through the wave, you kind of get over it, you start feeling better, and then your chemical balances rebalance and you're back to normal. What was happening with me was that there was never really this like the balance was never really happening. It was never rebalancing. And I would feel okay. I never felt great. And what I really found out during that period of time was I finally found this trend. I was being treated with antidepressants. I was being treated with Paxil, Wellbutrin, Zoloft, Xanax. I couldn't sleep. They were getting ready to give me Valium. What's interesting though is those thoughts continued to work that way. I continued having these like sometimes anger, uncontrollable anger, and not understanding why I was pissed off, right? Or really, really sad and just not knowing why. Sometimes I would notice that there were just days that were just worse than others. I would wake up and I knew that that was just going to be a shitty day. So as I went through all the medication and everything else, I started doing hypnotherapy. That was about 2.5 years later. What they started telling me in hypnotherapy was, analyze your thoughts. What emotion is coming to you? One of the therapists there told me something that was really, really interesting. He said, Michael, when you have those fleeting thoughts or those negative emotions, ask yourself, how is this benefiting me? How is it benefiting me to feel this way? Because everything has benefit, right? I mean, we don't, our mind doesn't do something unless either there's a benefit that comes with pleasure or there's a secondary gain. A lot of times when I work with clients, it's really interesting because they'll say, oh, this is happening to me and I'm having anxiety and I can't drive, or this is happening to me and I'm having anxiety and I don't want to go to work anymore. It's usually not the job and it's usually not the car. It's usually that there's something deeper inside that's lying into the unconscious behavior pattern. For me, it was my mother's passing. I could go even further beyond that. For me, it was that my mom had been my really deepest connection to life. I mean, I she used to have this magic pot, a black pot that she used to put Hershey's miniatures in. That was a reward for me every time I ever did something. I grew up in a ranch, so that was a reward process for me. But what was interesting was that really, I didn't think of that. So after she passed, I never really thought about that, but it came up in hypnosis. I really honestly do believe that if I had not dealt with that, those negative reframing thoughts would have never gone away because that was the beginning of understanding something. A lot of these hypnotists and a lot of people out there, even psychiatrists, don't say, well, how is the background? How is this? A lot of times they just take for face value, right? I like to ask questions. I was probably the little kid that growing up, I was like, well, why does it do that? Well, how come? Well, if it does that, why does it do that? How come, right? So I learned a lot with the airline industry. I was there for 16 and a half years. I learned to be able to watch how people reacted and how they interacted with each other. I could see those thoughts, those negative thoughts hitting their mind before they reacted upon it. Now, what's interesting though is that those negative thoughts obviously started early on in the day, right? They didn't start by the time, but they just got to the gate agent and those negative thoughts came forward. But more than likely, those negative thoughts started earlier in the day or earlier in time. It could have been driving to the airport, it could have been trying to get the cab to the airport, trying to get the Uber to the airport. So, if I could give you some advice and what I learned through my life during this process was to really go in, analyze myself. If I wake up feeling shitty, I want to know why, right? I mean, usually, I mean, yes. Okay, so if I wake up and I'm like, oh, I had a food that had way too much salt and I'm feeling that right now, that's different than waking up and being like, oh, shit, I don't really want to get out of bed. I don't, I'm just feel like it's kind of like a cloudy day, right? A lot of times we feel like the sun just went behind a cloud and you get that whole just sensation that moves through your body. And the interesting thing with that is that it's coming from your brain. I mean, you're not feeling that just to feel that. You're feeling that because it's coming from your neurology, right? Your brain is telling your physical body how to respond because it's trying to cope. It's trying to go in and it's trying to give you a coping mechanism to how you feel. But the thing is if you're not feeling or understanding what's happening to you, you'll stay stuck. And that's something that I had a real difficult time with was that if your mind is feeling something and you're physically feeling it through your neurology of your body, through the physical form of your body, how do you change that, right? I mean, it seems almost uncontrollable because now we know it's chemical. And that's one thing I had to learn was that I was going through chemical adjustments in my mind that was reflecting or inflecting on how my body was responding to itself. So I would feel exhausted. I'd feel tired. I feel like I just didn't have any energy, like I couldn't move to even get my day going. And the problem with that was that I had to finally realize, my brain is telling my body how I need to feel, not vice versa. I don't, my brain's not, my body's not saying, oh my God, my arm hurts, right? Even if you break a bone in your arm and your leg, it's not the bone and the leg that's making the body hurt. Yes, it's neurology. There's nerves going up into the brain, right? But the brain is signaling for you to feel pain. It's one of the biggest chemical driven power plants we have in the world. There's nothing that comes even close to how our brain operates. We don't even know a lot about it because it's so intricate and so well designed by God or the universe or whatever you believe, right? But if you get to the point where you understand your mind and you understand how it's physically changing your body, I believe you can change how you feel. And I believe that when I was going through this, I just didn't know how to do it. So the hypnotist that worked with me that actually told me, your mind is controlling your body, not vice versa, had also told me, ask yourself, how is this benefiting me? If there's a benefit, great, hold on to it, keep it. But if you're feeling crappy and you're noticing that it gets worse and worse, it becomes this compounding emotion, you've got to change that. And by changing it, I mean think about the opposite of it. So, and there's still times where I'll be in the grocery store and I'll think, "Ah, shit, I got so much to do. I'll try to go to lunch, right? I'll try to go shopping at lunch and bring everything back before I have a client at 1 o'clock. And I'll be up there and I'll be like, oh man, I got to get out of here. Damn it, everybody's really slow. And I have to stop myself and be like, okay, you know what? You have plenty of time. You're okay. You made the time to be here and you gave yourself plenty of time. And it actually will change the way you physically feel. Slow yourself down. Take a deep breath and just be like, yeah, I'm okay. I got plenty of time. Another thing to really get yourself to do is to get the body to know by using your brain to know that a lot of times what happens is we don't sleep well. You're getting this time where everything is just crazy in your mind and you're just not sleeping, right? So that also causes you to have these flighty feelings, these emotions that are just kind of everywhere. Work on your sleep pattern. There's a tea out there that I used to drink called valerian root tea. You can get it at a health food store. It'll help you sleep at night. So if you're starting to have moments or nights that you're not sleeping, even if it's just once a week, it's really, really important to address that because that's how you're going to get your brain and your mind to get back into this place. Sleeping is really, really important. Now, I usually can operate on 4 to 5 hours of sleep. I've been that way forever. I shouldn't say forever. After leaving the airline industry, for some weird reason, that's kind of where I feel my best. So I go to bed sometimes like 11, 10, 11:30, 12 o'clock, and I wake up about 4:35, sometimes 6, but right in that range, and I feel okay. Um, but you've got to get good night's sleep. And reframing those negative thoughts is really, really important. If you're having those thoughts all the time, then you really need to talk to a therapist. You need to talk to either even a psychologist or a psychiatrist or even a hypnotist. Go to somebody who has the background and who has gone through your situation. And I think it's really important that your therapist or your hypnotist have actually experienced some of what you've experienced, or they have actually gone and taken the time to study how something works. Okay. I worked with a lot of athletes, elite athletes, and I've never swum a 300 meter swim, but I learned everything not just from my client, but from doing research and finding out how things operate and why do things work the way they work. Knowing how the brain operates, I can get the client to motivate and move in different directions, but you have to first understand what's either limiting or holding that client back. And if you can't go through back history like that, you're kind of stuck with moving forward. You don't move forward. And you can do a placebo effect. Hypnosis is great for that. If you want to create a placebo effect, it'll help you get along for a little while. But eventually that'll surface back up and you're going to deal with it in a different way. Sometimes it's alcohol addiction, drug addiction. Sometimes it's just I had a lady that she couldn't drive. I mean, she was having a real difficult driving, and we got her at least back on the road. But it really had come from something else. I mean, this young lady had actually experienced uh, um, an airplane crash, and it had ingrained in her mind, and it kept coming back into play in an unconscious level, but not a conscious level. So once we found the core root of that, we could go back and we could start to work on that, and we could reframe the negative thoughts. So a lot of times, remember, every human being, the mind operates in a visual form first. So for her, she kept seeing that airplane coming down on an unconscious level, which was triggering an emotional level through the neurology of her brain because she was driving home when she saw that incident happen. So we desensitized that, closed that down, put it in the back of the unconscious mind, and then allowed her to start operating forward to see herself actually having success. So success with going to where she was going to, success with being able to go grocery shopping, success to being able to go out and meet friends without having to carry somebody with her all the time to help her drive, right? To be with her. So it's interesting how it's all in our brain, and I know that, and I'll say that over and over again. But when you think a negative thought, that negative thought's going to reflect on how you physically feel, especially if it continues over and over and over again. Hey, Carrie, how are you? Welcome. I'm going to take some questions in a little bit. People are still populating in, and I see people popping in and out. Right now, we are on YouTube. We're on two of the Facebook groups. I did not do the other third face group because I was not able to get this to connect. So hopefully they come over here. But what's really interesting, and what I find a lot of times, is that if we have to go in and try to just get to the point. A lot of times, and I will see this with clients a lot of times. So what happens is once we talk about what we're going to work on, it's almost like they don't want to deal with anything from the past. And it's natural for our unconscious mind to block that out, right? It's natural to shut that down to the best of its ability, correct? But the unconscious mind is kind of like, I like to say, it's like an undercurrent in the ocean. So the waves on top are crashing. They're very active. They're moving. They're changing life, right? They're cleansing the sand. It's Mother Nature's doing its job. It's bringing animals to the surface so that animals can eat them. It's a whole bio process, right? But there's still an undercurrent that's happening underneath the water. And what happens is that undercurrent is the root of the cause that's causing these thoughts, these anxieties, these depressions, these moments in our neurology. So when you have a thought that is negative, this is the best way to reframe it. So one ask yourself, how is this benefiting me? And am I getting a benefit from it, or is it just me being an asshole, right? Am I just overwhelmed and being a total asshole? And another part of that is if you can laugh it out and be like, oh my God, I don't even know this person. I'm thinking these thoughts, or you do know the person. You're thinking that's supposed to be my friend. Why am I thinking that, right? So when you have those negative thoughts, it's really important to kind of address them. And if that thought comes with that same person over and over again, you probably need to talk about it because then it's not just a negative thought. It's an emotional, it's deep internal, and that's how you're really feeling. I know that with this pandemic and a lot of stuff that went on last year, that there's a lot of family members going through this right now. I mean, I've talked to some of my clients who are saying, yeah, I have a uncle who I can't stand now because he said this and this and this and this. I really didn't know he was that racist. I didn't know he was at this. He was at that. I didn't know all that about him. But what's interesting is that you have to go inside and say, okay, has he always been like that? And if you're distanced enough to not have to be there every day, you can say, okay, I control how much exposure I have to this man. I control whether I really care to talk to him or not. We are 100% in control of everything we do because we are able to control the thoughts. The key is to reframe the thoughts. For you personally, as an individual, reframe the negative behaviors that are happening through your neurology, through your brain process, so you don't harbor them and feel them emotionally. And there's some therapists out there, which is really interesting, that they kind of say that, well, if you're having chest pains, maybe it's part of you missing love. I don't know. I mean, I kind of go a little bit deeper. I mean, if that chest pain's been there forever, then yeah, there's probably something core rooted in that, right? If it's happening in the last 24 hours and it's getting worse and worse, you might be having a heart attack, a stroke. So it's really important to self evaluate in a proper way. And I think it's important for you to be able to like change those thought processes. Let's use that in another manner. Now, if you're thinking negative thoughts about, oh, I'm not good enough to do that, or I'm not good enough to be on this live right now. I'm having to wear this baseball cap because my hair is a disaster. Oh my God, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. I always love clients to say, oh, I can't do that. And I'll say, well, have you tried doing that? Well, no, I just know that I can't do that. So when you miss out on opportunity when you tell yourself you can't accomplish something, but that's coming from a negative thought. And that's more than likely coming from a past experience. The brain only knows and understands something that's experienced, right? So if it's experienced something in a negative way, even if it's verbal, I worked with an attorney a long, long time ago, and her dad was always telling her, "Oh, we're working on getting her through the California bar exam," was what we were doing at the time. And her dad, I guess, when she was young, said, she had said, I want to be an attorney. I want to be able to work in criminal law, but I want to represent women. And her dad was like, oh, sweetie, women aren't attorneys. You better start thinking like a person who's going to go do something else. You need to think about a job that you can do. So what was interesting was she kept failing the bar exam, failing the bar exam, failing bar exam. And she kept telling me this, that kept coming, it came up like two or three times in her language pattern. Well, a lot of times I know it's harder for women to pass the California bar exam. And the second time she said that, I was like, okay, this is weird. It just keeps coming up, and it's the same language in the same context. And it was general, it wasn't to her, right? So I said, well, go back and tell me where did you learn that belief system? And there's plenty of attorneys, and there's some pretty damn good ones. I said, I mean, you look at Gloria Allred. She's a tiger at what she does, right? Whether you like her or not, she's a tiger at what she does. So she said, "Yeah, you're right." She goes, "Well, I don't know." And it was interesting because in trance, she came up with it. During hypnosis, the mind goes into a very unconscious process. It's kind of like that. It feels kind of like when you're sleeping and you're kind of waking up a little bit, and you feel like you're half here and half there. In that process of coming out of trance, she heard her dad tell her that. Once we knew the core root of that, I was able to desensitize that by having her understand that, that's a very old belief system. That's something that, he only knew because he had experienced somebody saying that. And we're in different times. And we got the brain to stimulate on how powerful it would be to pass that bar exam, how her life would change, how much money she would make, how her children would not be able, they'd be able to go to a private school because she wanted them out of the public school system because she was not in a good area. Hence why she was trying to also work with women in that capacity, right? So once we eliminated that and we started reframing those negative thoughts, we got her to start actually going. She took the baby bar first. She took it and passed it. Then I think it was about 7 months later, she actually took the bar and passed it and was done. And it's interesting how what we what we unconsciously believe that comes through that undertie, through the tide of, through the undercurrent, is really how we reflect on our lives. It's really whether we succeed or fail. If you guys go to my website, deeperstate.com, look at my blog. I wrote a blog about how some people that are 35 succeed and they make millions, right? Their life is perfect, or they have a perfect family, a perfect child. They have what they believe is perfect because nothing's really perfect to any of us, right? We're always striving for more, but they have completed it. They've succeeded at 30 years old. Well, then there's other people that are 60 and 65 that are still trying to figure out why they're not succeeding, why they're not achieving, why they're not hitting their goals. And I honestly believe that it's because we have created limitations based on experiences. And those negative thoughts will continue to move through the unconscious behavior. So it's constantly feeling and feeding that negative behavior into the neurology of our body. If you ever notice when you have something that comes into your mind that's negative, you'll feel your body change. Think about what you feel like when you're sad. You go into that process, you take a deep breath, you feel your body come down. Maybe your voice changes like this. You begin to think about, that first dog. I can think of my dog's name. Simba was my dog's name. It was Chinese Shar. And it's interesting because I can remember, I'm feeling it now, but I can remember exactly what he looked like. I can remember what it was like when I took him into the vet. He had cancer, and I remember him bleeding all over the floor. And at that point, I realized, okay, this is it. It's over. I gotta let him go. That thought stayed with me for a long, long time. And I didn't get another dog. I didn't get another dog for years and years and years until I got a new roommate that was actually like, yeah, I want a dog. I said, I'd love to have a dog, but you're gonna have to take care of the dog. So we actually ended up getting two dogs, and I'm really happy with the dog. I love them. I've always loved them, but it took a long time to get over that. Same with love. People who you hear say, "Oh, you know what? I'm happy alone. I don't need love. I don't even need to get laid. I'm perfect," right? You're telling yourself that because there's some kind of you're protecting yourself because of some learned experience. Those negative thoughts are coming into your unconscious behavior. They're coming into the undertie, and they're connecting you to a reason to go into self-protection. Um, so I want to take some questions. Carrie's in here. Hi, Carrie. How are you? Carrie is an awesome person. I'll give you a little bit of background on her. Carrie, actually, I met her through the SBA, Small Business Development Center, for Long Beach, and I believe that she is actually in Orange County as well. But she helped me during the pandemic as far as like, as I closed down my brick and mortar offices. We were seeing clients online, but not to the capacity that I am now, and not to the reach that I'm working on getting with Facebook and Instagram and everything else. I mean, this kind of live thing was way out of my scope. It was not something I would even thought of. But Carrie came in and assisted me and coached me through what I needed to do, as well as, like, working on trying to maintain the business, pivoting the company so it would keep growing, and not just growing but existing, because everything kind of just shut down and people didn't know what they were going to do. Some of my clients were like, oh, I don't really know, I'm going to wait for a live session. So imagine they would have been waiting for a live session for a year and a half, and they would have never ever finished, and we would have never gotten them anywhere better than where they were when they came to me. And that's really my motto, and my goal is that my job here is to get you to leave my offices, or leave my lives, or leave my one-on-one private sessions when we do these, to leave me feeling and striving for your life a little better than when you came to me. That is my biggest goal and my biggest achievement, and that is what I strive for. Carrie taught me how to do that. She also taught me how to say, look, we don't know I don't know how long this is going to last. Let me see if I can read these comments real quick, guys. Um, Carrie, yes, she asked, have you found breathing to help? Yes. Does So two of those. So the other one is I'm gonna read it just as you wrote it, Carrie. So she says, does comparison of others help to reframe anxiousness or negative thoughts? So the first one is going to be, have you found that breathing helps you? And it does. So breathing does slow down your oxygen level, especially in a panic attack. Because in a panic attack, the client, or you, right, or me, when you're having a panic attack, the process is you're like, it's so important to slow down the breathing. I slow down breathing using a modified, what we call holotropic breathing, where I have the client, put their hand on their stomach with their thumb in their belly button and their hand on the side, like on, because kind of like this. So what happens is they're pacing their breath. So unconsciously in hypnosis, we're getting them to slow down that breathing pattern. So when they push in, they're breathing in. When they push out, they're imagining in their mind that they're taking more oxygen out of their body than what they're taking in. So it slows down the breathing pattern. A lot of times, what I have had clients do is get a paper bag. If they're having trouble driving and they start having a attack on the freeway and they have to pull over, carry a paper bag with you. Pull over, take your time, get the paper bag, slow down your breath, bring it really, really low and really calm. And you'll start to notice how the brain starts slowing down that rushing process. The heart will start to slow down and the body will start to slow down, because now the brain isn't having all these chemicals. It's a fight or flight feeling, right? So you're slowing down the fight or flight feeling. Now, her other question was, do you compare yourself? Do you compare yourself to, by comparing yourself to others, do you actually, is it better for you to not have, that's really it. It's really it really I really want to hit this really well. So by comparing yourself to others, do you not can it help you with not feeling anxious? The thing is that it depends, because I mean, you can compare yourself to a homeless person sitting on the corner, but you're going to start feeling bad about the homeless person sitting on the corner. So, and you really want to work internally with yourself. I mean, it's more about, why am I feeling this, right? Because and I'll tell you, I do use that a little bit. So when I have a client that comes in and they want to quit smoking, at the end I do. I have them, because you'll get so sensitive to cigarette smoke after smoking and becoming smoke free, that you'll be sitting in a car and a car next to you will pull up. You will smell that cigarette through their window, and you'll smell it. I program in their unconscious mind for them to think, oh man, poor sucker. Damn. I hope he gets it in time. Because that does encourage the mind to say, it's reinforcement, right? It's positive reinforcement for yourself. But when you're going through a panic attack, it's a little different, because it's not a cured process. You, first of all, don't understand why that's happening to you. a lot of times people don't know what the core issue is. They've never sat down and said, why is this happening to me? So you really have to go in and really kind of hit that process. Go in and say, why does this happen to me? Where does this stem from? Hypnosis is the greatest thing to do that with because it goes back into the process where you're in this kind of sleepy mode and we reprogram behavior patterns. But if a client comes to me and does not know the core root of what's going on with them, usually I refer them over to a psychiatrist just to get into what's happening, especially if it's something like a full depression and anxiety. I've had clients come to me that have been having anxiety and depression for, geez, 2, 3 years, and regular psychiatry can't get to the core root of it. And it's what I find really baffling is that I'll get in there and I'll say, did they ever talk to you about what your history was like? I mean, let's talk about your past. And they say, I've been in therapy for 2 years and nobody's ever asked me how they ask me how I feel, but they don't ask me details of my life. And I know that we could say, well, that would take a long, long time, right? But it's really easy to go in and just say, okay, go back and tell me when you very, very first time you remember this feeling or you remember this thought. When is the very, very first time you could ever feel this happening to you? And with their eyes closed, they can go back and remember pieces of that, or at least give me an age range, right? They can say, well, I remember this first happening around 2 to 3 years old. And I've had someone go even further. They'd be like, yeah, I think I was 1 years old because, my dad was an alcoholic and I can remember him having like fits and throwing things around and me feeling just really anxious as a little kid. I mean, there's your core root, right? So I think it's really, really important to have that core root. Um, I'm gonna, Carrie, I don't know if you want to come up with me or not on stage, but I'd love to have you up here and talk a little bit about kind of where things are right now and what you think about what's happening with the opening of our country, mostly California, because I think yesterday it's like no mask, no social distancing. We're just having a great time now. So, put in the comments if you want to come up. Otherwise, I won't put you on the spot. But she's an awesome, awesome person. I mean, I have a lot of respect for her. She came from corporate and now works for the SBDC, helping small businesses like myself and restaurants and everything else, pivoting. And now, I mean, I would love to find out kind of what they're working on now. Um, Oh, okay. She's on the phone. She's on the phone. So you can, if you're on your phone talking to somebody, but if you're on your phone, I can actually bring you on through your phone. You can come in through your phone. It'll work the same way. You'll have a panel. It'll just open you up when you hit the link. Let me know. S SBDC, yes, Small Business Development Center. If I'm right on that, let me know. But yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I had worked with him a long, long time. She's watching me, so she's not going to come up. Okay, maybe next time. But it was a really tough time. I mean, I think part of this was that we were getting ready to actually grow the business. We were getting ready to bring in new locations and expand our business. And oh, she says she can't, so I'm going to bring her in a little bit, and we can kind of chit chat a little bit with her. Um, but it was just a rough time because people didn't know what was going on. Honestly, I mean, honestly, people did not have an idea what was happening. We didn't know we didn't know where we were going or any of this, right? So, I mean, it was tough. And I do think that a lot of that had been difficult for us to not understand what was happening and what was changing for everybody. Um, and Carrie, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place this into the chat and you can just click on it and it'll bring you in. If anybody else tries to join through this link, I am going to hold you back and I'll leave you in the green room and you can chat to me what you want to talk about, and then I'll possibly bring you on as well. All right. So, Carrie, just click on that link. It should guide you straight through. It's the first time I've tried that, so hopefully it works out for us. So, reframing your emotions and reframing the negative thoughts are so important to everything, right? I mean, if you can reframe how you believe about your success, I mean, look, there's a kid right now, and I'm not promoting him in any way, but if you go to TikTok, there's this kid on there called he's Whitey18, and it's really funny because he's a good-looking kid. He's very young. I mean, he's kind of playing this 80s part. And he sings to the camera, he sings Oh Mandy and all these like songs, right? And he's kind of really geared towards the cougar women of the 80s, right? So he's got all this following. I think he just hit 1 million followers. But imagine what it'd be like. And he's getting modeling jobs and everything else. It's starting to come up. Um, I'm going to send it up to you again. 1 second here. Um, there you go. See if you see that. So he's starting to be able to like get a talent agencies coming after him and getting ready to bring him on board. And it's really it's sad because I know there's a lot of other people out there that could possibly have done that as well, right? But he had this process in his head that he was going to do this and that he wanted to achieve it, and he just did it. Um, and I'm also, Carrie, I'm going to also send it to you through text message on your phone as well. Okay, there you go. So so yeah, I mean, I think that we limit ourselves by a lot of what we do. We limit ourselves by how we actually correspond to how we're thinking. I like to always tell my clients when they're coming in with when they're limiting themselves in life, um, imagine if you were growing up in a town that you had no opportunities. It was really there's nothing going on there. You're educated but not fully educated. You don't have you're not ever going to be you're not ever going to go to any of the top colleges, right? You're just not that person. So. Um, so what's interesting or sad to me is that those kids have that opportunity, but sometimes they limit themselves even what they have to do when they'll limit themselves and say, "Wow, I can't do that." The military will offer them maybe like skydiving, and they'll pay them extra to do that, and they'll be like, paratrooping. They'll be like, "Oh, I can't do that. It's just too much." So, hey, Carrie,
Hey, how are you, Michael?
I'm good. How are you? Good to
Ha-
see you. How
Happy
you been?
birthday.
Oh,
Crazy times. Thanks for bringing me on with no makeup and just, hanging out,
I,
right?
you're awesome. You're awesome. You're awesome. You're always, it's not about how we look, it's about what you do, right?
That's exactly right.
And
Exactly
you
right.
do a hell of a lot more than anybody I know.
Keeping it real in the business world. That's all we can do, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about where things are and kind of like I'm talking today about it's kind of reframing negativity, and I saw that a lot. So I'm going to share a little bit about what when I first met you. So we go into these rooms. It was really interesting because they were doing Zoom rooms, and I'd been doing Zoom for a long, long time. I mean, I had been seeing clients here in the nation as international with my Olympic and Junior Olympic clients, and so I was used to Zoom. But we used to get so many. I would see people in there just messing with it, not being able to get it, and then I would see some people like not show up to the next session, and I'd be like, I would know if it was like overwhelming or what. I just think, wow, that must have been really a lot for them to try to figure this out. And then we started talking a little bit, and I know that a lot of people were afraid to move. It became almost debilitating to them, right?
Yeah, it was a paralysis, right? Where so when the COVID whole thing started, I saw so many people paralyzed because they just kind of thought, if I just hope beyond hope, it'll be over in a minute and I don't have to change what I do, right? And then 2 weeks became 3 weeks, became 2 months, became 4 months, became, oh crap, I have to do something different, right? And I remember one of the times that you were part of a small business cohort where you were part of our group, right? And with people that were in business, significantly sophisticated in their business, and part of that group. And the pivot, like you were talking about earlier in the show, was you had to actually tighten the belt, tighten down the suspenders, and just go for it, right? And you
Sure.
couldn't do business as usual. Well, we've seen that happen a lot, but you know what? One of the biggest challenges I've seen in the last probably 30 days, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 days, is when the governor said, hey, by the way, June 15th is a magic day when we go back to normal. And the panic that ensued over what? I have to do something different. Then I got really comfortable in the last year and a half doing something different. Now you want me to go back to something different, which is kind of sort of normal. And the anxiety level that happened with all of my clients that were thinking, I don't know how to do that, right? And so I know you and I have talked about that a lot. There was a lot of just crazy, oh my gosh, what do I do now?
It's a lot of analysis paralysis. And
Yeah.
I saw a lot of that in the initial meetings. And I can't imagine. I'm sure it's more now because people are like, "Oh my God. Well, how do we know if the vaccine's really helping us or not? How do we know if we're resilient to this?" And I'm supposed to
Yeah.
take my mask off and I'm supposed to walk outside and I'm supposed to go to a grocery store or a restaurant. So, but the thing
perfection
is,
perfection is our biggest enemy, right? Because
yes,
perfection, that thought that something should be perfect will keep us from doing anything. And I like, you've heard me say it a million times, I like excellence because we can deliver excellence any day of our life, even on our shitty days, right? Whatever our capacity is, if we give our all, we can get there. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and that's okay. But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of paralysis right now. I'm seeing a lot of big eyes. What do you mean I have to do what?
sure, sure,
Because it's not, just because people say it's okay doesn't mean that everything's okay, right? Because, okay, so the governor says okey doke, which I love it, wide open, whatever. You've got people that are fully vaccinated, like myself. You have people that are not, and there's no judgment there on my part. And then you have OSHA saying you have business regulations, and then you have cities and health departments saying there's other regulations, and then you have consumers coming in saying, well, I don't feel comfortable with this or not with that. And so these business owners are really caught between a rock and a hard place because they have like 6 points of yelling happening from the different mountaintops, like,
sure.
you have to do this, and they're like, well, I don't know what to do, so they do nothing, or they just duck and cover, right?
Absolutely. And it's tough. It's interesting because I mean, it's tough. Today I sat in on a talk about I guess getting a tax reduction if you didn't make so much, a 10%, if you had a 10% loss during a certain period of time. But what's strange with that was that because there's so much changing, even the instructor was like, well, the bad part about this is if you come back 3 years later and the IRS wants to audit you for that, you're not going to be able to say that Bob was right because they may change it.
My
So
famous quote was, in all of this, it's like the weather pattern over Denver. Like, if you don't like what's going on, wait 15 minutes and the law will
it'll
change,
change.
right? Just give it 15 minutes, breathe deeply. The law is going to change. The rules are going to change. The climate's going to change, whatever is going to happen, right? I mean, part of it is, I tell my clients this all the time too. I'm not a hypnotherapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a mental health expert. But gosh, take a deep breath, like you said, and does this, why am I holding on to this? Is this, why do I want this to affect me? Is this really affecting me? And is it affecting me today? Or is it attached to some other fear, anxiety
Correct.
from my past, right? You and I have talked about that a lot. About, like, what are these emotions attached to? Um, and I think that, I love that whole analogy that you've said before of, it's kind of like the emotions are a parade. Let them go past you, evaluate what you're seeing, acknowledge them, give them the salute, wave them bye-bye, or do we need to hold on to them, right? And
Sure.
then um, maybe kind of pull up your big boy, big girl panties and take one step, right? It doesn't
Sure.
have to be this whole leap. But you've seen it on some of the cohorts you've been on too, where people just really get, and it's real. The fear is real, and I'm never going to
Absolutely.
discount that. I believe it. I see it. I've dealt with thousands of people with eyes this big, and because your whole life is on the line, especially in small business. And I think good practices like you talk about are very essential. And I think everybody needs that ability to just kind of chill and maybe get to the bottom of it, maybe get some help,
Correct.
um, to be able to breathe into it and say, okay, I can do this. And hey, Michael, can you take me through a process where I can recenter and give it a rest and make it happen. Right? I mean, I personally have watched you do that with loved ones and people that are very close to me, so I know that it works and I love it.
And it's I will notice, so I will have an interview with a client because I interview them all before I take them. I won't just take a client because if I'm not beneficial to them, if I can't serve them, I won't take them.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're ready to go until I say, well, let's talk about the past history. Let's talk about, and it takes them forever, either forever to commit or they just don't commit.
Yeah.
And I'm a therapist that I'm a hypnotist always calls back. A lot of hypnotists will not. They'll do their session and be like, oh, so Carrie's not having anxiety anymore because she didn't call back. She's doing great. So
Probably
I've
probably I'm just under my bed, right? No, I mean
exactly,
if I if
absolutely.
right? If you didn't
And
call me, I wouldn't talk. It's like my clients. If I don't call you back, you're not going to tell me that you didn't do X, Y, and Z, right?
correct. So I'll call them and I'll be like, I didn't hear back from you. You didn't book. How you doing? Oh, I just haven't had a lot of time and I'm still. So how are you doing with the anxiety? Are you whatever you're doing, right? Are you driving? Are you going to work and enjoying your job yet? And they're like, no, I'm still not. I haven't had time to deal with anything. So they put it aside and it never changes. I've had clients that have been that way for, my Lord, 20 years, and they just live that way.
Total human nature, right? I didn't have time. Oh, okay. So, because you've heard me say this too, because there's no such thing as time management, it's priority management, right? So,
Absolutely.
if you didn't have time, oh, okay. Because you probably weren't sleeping in a way, because probably you weren't sleeping well anyway, right? Or you were sleeping too much or whatever.
Correct.
But what if it's because it's just so incredibly human. If I don't want to do it, I'm going to pretend I don't have time, I don't have the resources, I don't have the whatever. Now, maybe you don't have resources or time or whatever, and those can be honest things too.
See, and they can't tell
However,
me that because I don't. I mean, if they need to work with me for $10 an hour, work for $10 an hour. So with me, I know that it's that their issue is
avoidance.
bigger.
Is it avoidance? Is that the word?
Yes, it is. It's avoidance and it's self-protection, really.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember, I mean, it is real, and you said, it is really real to them, and it really is. This is really real. It's so real that it becomes fear, and the fear
Oh,
becomes anxiety, and the anxiety runs into depression. I've never seen somebody who's have. I shouldn't say that. 97% of the people that I see that are going through anxiety at some point end up with depression. They go hand in hand.
I would, based on my non-professional background, yes, I would say that's true.
Yeah, and they just hide it. And you got to think about this. So some of us live through cycles in our life and die that way. I mean, I have seen clients that have been anxiety ridden their whole life, and they will go through friends that I go back home, and these friends are doing exactly what they were doing the the week they graduated from high school. They're working at the same job. They're living in the same apartment. They're living in the same condo. I'm at least over my 30s. So,
I was going to say you're at least beyond 32, right, Michael?
yes, so
Me too.
somewhere in there between 25 and 30. So these people have been experiencing this their whole life and complaining and bitching and wanting change, but not taking the first step to make the change because the fear is so big.
Well, you know what? So I see it from a different perspective, right, in business, and
Sure,
I know that I'm allergic to being wrong, right?
sure,
Totally allergic to being wrong. I don't want to be wrong. So I have self managed into different behaviors. I use post-its and map out my stuff so I don't have to be linear and things like that. But I think the human race is allergic to being wrong or
hmm
being judged because I know I am. I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to be bad. I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be all of those things. Um, and so if I think that there's vulnerability there, I might hide what I do and do it in secrecy. So my job with small business is to always pull out the thinking out of the secrecy. I think you do
sure.
the same thing in life in
You
general,
have to.
right? It's like it's the monster in the closet when you were 4 years old and you pulled the cover over your head and you're like, it's big big. Oh my God, it's huge. It's got huge teeth. It's going to get me, right? But if you just open your eyes, pull back the sheets, and open the closet door, nothing's there. And I think for me on the business side, it's the same thing. We can solve things if we just bring them out and put them on paper and get them out of your head. I think watching you do what you do with people, it's the same thing, no? Just for a
Sure.
different result.
Absolutely. You have to know the core emotion. And once you know that, you can deal with fear and you can deal with the success of them moving forward. And not making them wrong, because you got to remember, really they're not wrong,
We're
because
never wrong,
they're
right?
doing what they believe is right.
Well, we were having this conversation over dinner the other night in our family because we talk about primary emotions, secondary emotions, things like that. And when anger, avoidance, pointing fingers, like all of those things come up in the world, we have a thing saying, so what do you think happened? I was mad, I was upset, I was feeling whatever. And then the question, when we hold each other accountable in this house, and it's like, what do you think the primary emotion was?
Sure.
I will tell you 99% of the time it's fear.
Absolutely.
And then labeling the fear of being wrong, fear of being rejected, fear of being less than, fear of not being able to execute, fear of failure, fear of poverty, fear of, like, you could fill in that blank with like 9 million things, right? We talk about that a lot. And I had personal experiences where I finally learned that process 5, 6 years ago. I had no idea, because if you had asked me 5 years ago, 6 years ago, what's the primary emotion that stops people from doing anything, I could not have come up with fear, because I
Totally fair.
I thought that was a weakness, and fear is not a weakness. It is one of the core responses to so many things. And for me as a consultant, if I can figure out through compassion that fear is your blockage, then we can work through that,
Sure.
right? Because we can find a way to get you so that you're not afraid of your, because in my business, you're usually afraid of yourself, because yourself is either going to fail or succeed, and either one of those are pretty big,
And
right?
think about what the biggest thing is that causes fear. What would you say that is? What do you think the biggest thing is that causes fear in somebody's life?
Head trash. That's what causes fear in my life, right? The head trash, the lies somebody told me when
Yep.
I was 4, 5, 6, 7. You're not good enough. You're too smart. You're not pretty enough. You can't do that. You're not artistic enough. You're not good at fill in the blank. You can't do that. Nobody, you're a girl.
And remember, those are the undercurrent, right? Sometimes you don't even know that those emotions are there.
Mm-mm.
It's an auto-responsive system. So what happens is you may do something over and over again that pisses you off, but you never sit there and analyze why. Where if you analyze why it's pissing you off, you're going to find that undercurrent has something to do with a learned experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we didn't learn it, if imagine if you never ever ever had fear in your life. You were a child that never ever experienced fear, right?
Yeah.
We naturally put fear in place in order to keep us alive,
Yeah.
right? So
I,
so it's
I was a
important to
springboard
have.
diver. I know what fear is, right? Like, stay away from the board, right?
Sure. And I'm sure you hit the board once in a while with your hand or your foot or tapped it, or and it was like, oh shit.
Or too close that the coach pulls you out of the water and yells at
Yeah.
you. I was more afraid of that than hitting the board itself. Yeah.
So those processes get you to learn experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, it has to be a modified experience. So first of all, you have to know there's a problem. Because otherwise, remember, it's an autonomic system. Our physiological mental self is an autonomic system. So it's like a computer. Once you program it, it
Yeah.
continues to run that same program over and over again. The only thing that causes people to change is either pain or pleasure. That's it. Those are the only emotions that ever make a human being make changes in their life. It could be a pleasure of ice cream candy. You know, what is the ice cream that has the gumballs on it? It could be gumball ice cream. And it's just like, oh my God, that is so wonderful. Oh, it's the best pleasure of my life. Now, and I'm simplifying this, but imagine if you took that pleasure with the fear of having to move out to outside dining. And I'm simplifying that process. But if you get in the unconscious mind and you can change, you can trump over the emotion. We got to find a pivoting point, right? So, pivoting point is to bring pleasure into the negative, into the pain point. Once you can figure that out, you can begin to pivot and move the pleasure point into being something that works out great. Because now they may be like, oh my God, I love having outdoor dining. It's great. And we're going to be able to maybe keep this space afterwards. Oh shit, it just made my dining room 2 times bigger, right?
Right. You know what darted into my head when you said that was ET with Reese's Pieces. Like you just put the little Scooby snack in place, right?
That's right.
Follow the little treat to get you to the next step.
Correct.
Definitely. Well, so we saw that. My son and I were dining out last night, and you know, OSHA still governs restaurants, medical, grocery. And so even if the state is wide open with mandates released or whatever, those industries are still really um, locked down, right? Where they can't, everybody still needs to wear masks. There's distancing. Some people don't care and they're doing whatever they want to do. And I'm not saying that with judgment. It just is what I'm witnessing. But big chain restaurants, and we were in a nationally franchised chain last night, and there was still distancing. There's still mask wearing when you go in. I was at my grocery store the other day, and I walked in the day after the mandate lifted, and I'm thinking, well, I'm fully vaccinated. I guess I don't need to wear a mask. And it says out front that only vaccinated people, if you're not vaccinated, please wear a mask.
Sure.
But I walked in, Michael, I kid you not, everybody in the store was wearing a mask, all shoppers.
Mhm.
But when I looked, more importantly, the employees were. And I thought to myself, ooh, I don't want to be that person that's bucking the trend, right? Because that's my
Sure.
nature. But more importantly, I wanted to show solidarity to the workers that were still under the requirement, even if the rest of us aren't.
Sure.
And I did
And they're
ask them,
and I mean they're doing it actually with the safety of the other people because people who haven't been vaccinated are highly exposed still to it. So
well, and OSHA's requiring it, right? Until in a workplace,
absolutely.
right? So there's certain laws. So I think that as we move forward, it's not, we, we were talking about it in our household, and I've talked about it with my clients is, I don't have a tiara and a magic wand, but I'm going to do it anyway. Like I give permission, to everybody. I'm just going to pop them over the head with my magic wand. I give you permission to operate yourself in whatever capacity you need to feel comfortable,
Sure.
right?
And
Because
that's
it's
it.
a weird time,
It's
right?
going to take some time, I think, for
Transition.
us as a country to transition into something that's normal, right? What we experienced to be normal before. And I don't think there's ever going to be 100% normal. Because I was telling my roommate, I was saying, you know what, look, I mean, I'll probably still wear a mask in the store because I haven't been sick in a year and a half. I didn't get a cold in a year and a
Love it,
half.
right? Love it.
So, I haven't seen a doctor a year and a half, and I haven't had any flus or anything. So, we have Anna Dean joining us right now, and she's saying she never knew fear until a traumatic experience happened to her, and that's very true. A lot of times, what happens is trauma causes that fear and the fear situation, right? And like I was saying a little bit earlier, something has to happen in order for us to experience it, and it could be anything, right? I mean, I have had clients that have gone on out and got really, really drunk and don't remember what they did, and that made them fear getting drunk ever again,
Mhm.
which is a good thing, but it had to take that for them to go in and make those changes. I've had clients that have gone in, they've been like, I had a young kid that jumped off the roof. And he had done it many, many times. He broke his leg. And he came in and I'm like, what happened to you? He's like, oh, I broke my leg. And I said, so what'd you learn? He's like, I'll never jump off a roof again.
Never again, because the 900 times before that he didn't, he's like, no big deal. But the one time, Michael, I found fear, the pain points and the fear a bigger motivated than the joy points and the wins, right? I think as for me, I see humans when we win, we're like, woohoo, and we move on, right? But the crash and burn, the scar on the knee, that's the war story that you tell later, but it's also the thing that sticks in your head of saying, I don't know if it hurt mentally, physically, emotionally, then maybe I'm not going to do that again. It's like the hot stove thing, if,
Absolutely. And a
right?
lot of it, a lot of it's how you deal with it too. So I want to make
to,
that
to back into
I
that,
want
right?
to clear that a little bit. I want to make that a
Yes,
little bit more
please.
clear. So when a child is very very young and the child's running down the street and falls and just skins his knee up, right? The response is based a lot on what the mother responds to. Like, so if the mother's like, oh my God, look at Bobby, and runs over and grabs that child, like we see happen all the time, picks a kid up, starts running that kid into the house, that child's gonna, and a lot of times those kids don't even cry until that happens with the mother's responsiveness. Then the kid's like, oh my God, right? This must be really, really bad.
Yeah.
So, so we go way back. I mean, you got to go way back, way back, way back to being a child and realizing, oh, how was my mother? And I find that a lot of times with my clients is like they'll have these emotions or these anxieties, and mother was anxious the whole time. Or dad was having anxiety all the time about his job. There was a period in his life where he was unemployed. He didn't know what he was going to do. He was struggling. And that becomes part of that neurology, becomes part of that. Like when I said, it's like I want to say a tape. I don't know. I mean, some people watching
It's
this will
that
have no
endless
idea what the
loop,
hell.
right?
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
people might not know what the hell a tape is, but so it's like a hard drive. So what happens is it's programmed, right? So it plays the same thing over and over again. And every time it hits that little spot is when the pain comes into play. So if that hard drive was programmed emotionally and stable and be able to say, oh, you know what, I can, son, you can handle that. You just, it's okay. It's just a boo boo. Let's go put a Scooby Doo Band-Aid on that. It's going to heal and you'll be okay. You know, or even when you go into a doctor. I mean, I've worked with a doctor's office and they're like, oh, they'll say, oh, it's just going to hurt a little bit. What the hell? you know, the language pattern for that, the reframing of that should be, you're just gonna feel a little touch right here in a moment, or you're gonna just feel me touch you, and it's just gonna be really easy.
Little
Le-
prick. You'll be
A
fine.
little, yeah, little prick. Even that is like, oh my God, right? Because you're like, you don't want to feel the discomfort of it. So, just say, oh, I'm just gonna be touching your arm for a little bit, or just relax, and I'm gonna just go ahead. You're gonna feel me touching your arm for a little bit. And pain can be very pleasurable. I mean, look at these people that are doing tattoos all the time. I mean, the first one hurt, or piercing all the time. The first one hurt. Then it becomes a pleasure zone process. So the key is to find out where it started and then be able to like move it through. What I saw a lot with the business owners at the beginning were that they were having a really hard time just changing anything. Just changing anything. I mean, like not even like not seeing outside the box. I mean, a friend of mine who owns several bars here in Long Beach, was trying to wait it out. And I think I referred him actually to you guys, and I think he either got you or somebody else. But they were like, finally, I mean, he waited a long time. And then finally they were like, you know what, you have outdoor patios. What are you doing?
The
Oh,
pain has to be exponential for that. I this last year and a half, until the pain became unbearable, it was hard to see the majority of the business owners move. Because I always say, hope is not a strategy, but a lot of people really hung on to that, thinking if I
mhm,
just wait one more minute, if I just wait one more minute, that robber isn't going to come through my front door, even though he's pounding on it, right? If I just wait one
correct.
more minute, my house isn't going to fall down around me, even though there was an earthquake. If I just, as humans, we want to just believe that if I just hold on, because holding on is supposed to be strength.
That's right.
And that's such a lie sometimes, to keep riding out the pain. And that's supposed to be strong. Tap out, people. Do something else. Like pivot. Like wait a minute. You don't have to be destitute and so flattened to the mat before you make a change. It's okay. I did not know that for the majority of my 20s and 30s, Michael. I was the kid, I was the person, I was the young adult that I had to go absolutely to the mat until I couldn't even breathe to make a change.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you, you do not have to go that far. It's
And see, so
not necessary.
see, and I went through that. So I
Mhm.
lost my mom in '96, and 2 years of that was really, really tough. 2 years of that was alcohol, drugs. It was everything I could do to get myself distance from the emotions, right? I was like, oh, I was raised to not cry. I was raised to be strong. I was raised to just move forward, get over it, just get yourself together and get over it. And I couldn't. The only way I was able to do that was to actually dead my emotions with alcohol and drugs and just separate myself from
Mhm.
everything in my life and not expose myself to anything that would hurt. So so I had dealt with that at a very young age, and I thought that, oh, there's not I have to change this. And I did. I hit rock bottom before I was like, okay, this is going to kill me. And with the pivoting of that, with pivoting of my business, I had experienced pain before, and I thought, okay, this is going to hurt. This is not going to be good, and this is not pleasurable in any freaking way. So how am I supposed to do this? So what I started doing was I started going in and I started connecting myself to the process of thinking, well, I've been seeing clients online for a long time. I have electronic forms already. I'm the hell out of this office space. I'm going home. So, I mean, it was I think that if I had never experienced something like that before in my life, or if I hadn't experienced the negativity of that
Mhm.
and not being a therapist, I would have melted down.
You were an early adapter to online pivot. You definitely were, where you embraced it. You're like, I don't know how I'm doing, and that's the thing. I don't know how I'm doing it, but I know I can do it and I'm going to work it out. Right. I tell my clients this all the time. I tell my kids this all the time. It's not about knowing the how, it's just about believing that you can and then putting in the big hard work to get there. Right.
Correct.
Because at some point, and that goes back to the whole perfection thing where people get paralyzed by perfection saying, well, if I don't know how I'm doing it, then I shouldn't make a move. And
Mhm.
I'm not talking about being irresponsible and just like shooting from the hip and doing crazy stuff. But when you really think it through and you've got to move, I think there's this faith that has to happen. And I'm not talking religious faith. It doesn't, whatever your
Oh,
faith
it's very
in
internal.
yourself, in the universe, in the process, whatever, you don't have to know the minutia of the how, but you do need to believe that you're strong enough to make those changes. And there's no guarantee of how long it's going to take or how painful it's going to be, but it's not going to be where you're at. And so that might be a really good thing. We have a
And the
saying
key
around
the
here.
key is to roll with it. I mean, this is the thing, is that, and I really do believe the things that don't kill you make you stronger. The things that you screw up, fuck them.
You're
I
gonna
hate
laugh.
to say that, but
I was on a call today, a team call with some of my core consultants, and I have one individual, one associate that is a little more process oriented, and this person likes to see all the micro little steps to go. And we're rolling out this new program, and I said, look, it's kind of like when you're out on the dance floor and they change up the music and the beat changes. You have to just kind of move with it, and you might not be in beat. Then next thing you know, you got it, and then you take off on the new beat. Like 2/3 of the room got it, and a third of the room didn't get it. And everybody was like, "But that's life, right?" It's like
absolutely.
you're on this one beat, and all of a sudden it's going to change. Or Stairway to Heaven. Oh my goodness! You're slow dancing in the '70s, and next thing you know, it gets all loud and crazy, and then you gotta make it happen.
And how many times does it change? I mean, this thing, we go through changes every day of our lives. The only thing is, they're changes that we feel like, remember, it's a tape, right? So you walk out and you have a flat tire. Oh shit. Well, you know how to deal with that. You walk out and they stole your car. Oh shit. You don't know how to deal with that. so, so it's all learned experience and behavior patterns. But
Change the beat of the music, baby. Just dance to the
absolutely,
new beat, right? And then
absolutely,
call a professional that can help you, right? We
absolutely. And
we've
that's the
talked about
thing.
that. Like,
You have
stop
to.
talking to people who can't help you. Don't you see that all the time? Like, people want to talk to other people that can't help them, that are going to help drown them, not help them.
I have
And
a business group, and it's crazy because some of them will go in there and be like, I've been talking to my uncle about this new business, and I really want to do this. And this was before the pandemic. I really want to do this, but he's telling me not to, that, I have a steady job, it's 9 to 5, and they're giving me medical and dental, but I'm miserable. And I'm like, you need to talk to somebody who doesn't love you. You
right,
need to
because
talk to
the people
somebody
that love us want to keep us safe, right?
very safe.
Right?
Absolutely.
Don't do that.
Absolutely.
And our uncles, the most toxic place to squash your dreams is around the holiday table with family. They
Yes.
love you so much they're going to tell you you're a moron for thinking that you can bigger than what you have, right?
Absolutely.
I tell people all the time, stop talking to your family until you have a plan. Get your plan together, and once you know that your plan is viable, then go tell them, and then they're going to think you're a genius. But in the meantime, they're just going to think you're a moron. Because your uncle, bless his heart, that delivers sparkless water, is going to tell you how to form a business or not, right?
Correct.
They love you.
Absolutely.
They do. They love you, and I love that in them. But so stop talking to them.
I had been with Delta Airlines for 16 and a half years, and I went back and forth if I should leave or not leave. I mean, I would have had a pension and everything else. I was miserable at the end. After September 11th, I was miserable at that job. And I thought, I have to do something. I can't do this. And I had this already. I was doing this way before that. I was doing this probably 5 years or 10 years before. So I already had a practice. I was working part time, but I wasn't dedicating myself 100% to it. And this lady at work, I'll just do a shout out to her because she's here, and I'll actually tag her in here. Her name's Moira Harris. Awesome, awesome, awesome young lady. She's a flight attendant. We worked together, we used to fly together all the time. And she gave me this card because I was like, I had decided I was going. I was really scared. I was like, oh my God, what happens if I fail, right? What happens if I lose everything? And then I had to think about that. I thought, you know what? I'm so miserable here. I'm complaining to all my friends, my family. Everybody's sick of hearing me. I got to decide that I'm going to make this happen. And either if I live under the bridge, I'll adjust to that. But I have to make a change. So I did. And she gave me this card that was this lady, and she's holding an umbrella, and it's pouring down rain, and she's stepping over a puddle. And it said, sometimes you have to just take that first step. And that was it. I saw that. I can remember it clearly. I was on a flight coming home from Mexico, and she gave me that, and I was just like, oh my God, this is life. I got to take that step, or I'll never know. I can adjust under the bridge. I worked at McDonald's before. I can adjust.
I think woulda, coulda, shoulda kills more people than risk taking, than
Absolutely.
responsible risk taking, right? I'm not
Correct. Well, you have to analyze and calculate what you're going to do. I mean, that's the thing is I knew that I would get at least I got a 10 grand to leave. I had medical for I think it was a year. So I had some kind of safety net. You know what I mean? I wasn't I knew that I was going to be able to I would do something. I mean, if it was making jewelry, beaded jewelry under the bridge, I knew that I would make an income. So
hey, you can spin those signs on a street corner and
that's
figure out,
right.
right?
That's right. That's right. So, but we've been on here for almost an hour and 12 minutes. So I'm going to wrap this out. I want
Awesome.
to thank you so much. I'm going to close this real quick. You can hang out with me for a little bit, and then I'll pull you into the green room and just wait there for me, and then I'll come back and I'll meet with you down below.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
So,
you.
I'll let you close out in a second. I want to thank everybody for being here. We had people in and out. I want to thank Anna Dean for being here with me. I am getting people from YouTube and I ignored them. Sorry, guys. I'm so not used to being like everywhere at three places at one time streaming like this.
We're working with him. My colleague's working with him. He's gonna bring
She
him to
is. She
talk to
is.
all of you.
Bobby, thank you for joining us over on YouTube. Andy, thank you. Samantha, thank you. Carol, I promise I will get to that question soon. I'm so sorry, guys. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me. Michael Almers, Deeper States Mind and Wellness. You can visit me at deeperstate.com. If you guys, any of you are looking for anything, I mean, if you're going through the hard times right now, please call out to me. 562-426-6884 is my main line. That'll put you in. Just press one. That's going to bring you into my desk. If you're having financial problems, I don't care. Talk to me. Use me as a soundboard. I'm willing to give you advice. If you're a business owner, we do have a group that is starting up on Facebook, helping people do stuff like this, getting them with the lives, bringing them onto social media, helping you if you're looking at getting into like social media marketing and actually running advertising, go to Carrie. But if you have no existence and no presence whatsoever on Facebook, get a hold of me. We'll get you in our group and work with you. We do have an 8-week weight loss challenge coming up. I've been talking to you guys about that a little bit. It's actually coming into very close reality. Carrie will be excited and proud of me for this. So it's going to be an 8-week weight loss challenge. We have a recipe a week we're going to be giving you to help you release excess weight. We're going to be having teaching you how to do fasting and how to be able to cope with it, adding hypnosis to keep you to understanding that you can do this fasting and it's not going to be the end of your life. which is interesting because she's not here today. But 3 weeks ago, I had a young lady start listen to my talk about fasting, and she started doing it, and she's already lost 12 pounds. And it was probably, I guess, like a month and a half ago. I hadn't been to Arizona yet, so it works. It does great. DM me if you'd like. We'll get you on that list. Soon as everything's done with my web person, we'll be putting on the list, and you guys can join, and as well as the ads through Facebook. So thank you very much, Michael Elmers, Deeper States Mind and Wellness. Carrie, I want you. You can go ahead and say something and close out if you'd like, real quick.
Oh, thank you, Michael. It's always a pleasure to be part of your group and your troop. And I'm in the weight loss challenge with you, definitely. We've been on
Awesome.
this journey together for a while, right? So the SBDC, anywhere on the planet, all you got to do is, or anywhere in the US, right? Look us up, Small Business Development Centers, and all of the help and resources are free of charge to the people that work with us because we're funded by your tax dollars, but we're a lot of fun as well as helpful. So thank you, Michael.
You're welcome. Thank you. Great group, you guys. And you guys are awesome. I mean, I thank you so much. I think a lot of business would not be here right now if it wasn't for you and the generosity that you feel in your heart and how you hold people's hands. And I think that's so important. And I mean, personally, I want to thank you so much because I was in a position where I was like, holy shit. I was like, what is going to happen here? And I think the world felt that. I mean, I think the world, some parts of the world are still feeling that. And I am going to make a plug on that. And I'm going to make a plug on that. You don't have to make the plug. You don't have to be here if you don't want to hear that plug. But I'm going to say that you guys, if you're waiting to be vaccinated, please get vaccinated because I have a friend that was waiting to get vaccinated and has had now three deaths in her family. So if you're holding and waiting, don't think too long about it. We know the result of COVID. We you may be wondering and worrying about what the vaccine is going to do us to us long term, but I know for sure the results of COVID, and I've experienced it, seen it, not just with my friends, but with family members, and also with just people in my business community. So I ask from my heart to you that you really consider what you're doing and just don't wait too long. Alrighty, you guys, I'm gonna pull you down below, Carrie. Hang out there, and I will come back and meet you in the green room. Alrighty, thank you.
Bye all.
All right, you guys, thank you so much. I appreciate every one of you for being here with me tonight. Facebook, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, three Facebooks and YouTube. You guys, I know that I didn't pay attention to Facebook tonight. I want to apologize in advance for that. I mean, to YouTube. It's just, I'm getting used to running on four platforms at one time. So, anyway, thank you so much. I'm going to close out this show, and I appreciate everybody who's been here. And remember, Thirsty Thursdays every Thursday. I think we're going to do 8:30, just because then I'm going to keep it to 30 minutes. I had a guest speaker that I didn't know I was going to have. So anyway, I appreciate it. Thank you guys, and take care. And I wish you all the best.
I think these videos are brilliant, and I'm sure you will like them too. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell.